Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, and I'm setting up the record session as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the second meeting, I think, for the Spending Affordability Advisory Committee for Howard County for fiscal year 25. So today we have some really interesting topic, in my opinion, because we're going to cover local economy. We have essentially three major topics there. The first one is going to be delivered by EDA, the County's Economic Development Authority. They're going to go over the current economic activities as well as EDA's kind of promotion of local economic development. So there are interesting data to be shared with our committee. And following that, there will be a business panel discussion to be chaired by EDA President Jennifer Jones, but also we are very pleasant that we have some representative from business attending so they can share their perspective, their observation and experience about local economy, but also specifically to link to their own life business. And following that, the third item is our own committee member, Jimmy Jennings from the local Realtors Association will do a presentation about the county's real estate market. I know a lot of people are paying attention to that as well. So we really look forward to today's discussion. So first item, I will hand it over to EDA. I think Zark, if you don't mind, share your screen and we can start. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Okay, thanks everyone, and good afternoon. So we're going to first start with some of the updates about the general economy in Howard County, and then we'll go into particular initiatives that EDA is currently participating in. First we'll talk with the national comparison of the national standing and how Howard County measures up. So I know some of you have already seen this data, but it'll be great to just go through this and have a level set of what's going on currently. According to the most recent census, Howard County continues to see growth, and it's nearly double that of the U.S. as a whole, and U.S. as a whole, and then double that of the state. So as you know, with the census in 2020, some of the counties have been having people moving out. Howard County has a really great growth story. It was 12% in the last census. Thanks, Sam. Our median household income continues to be high. We are sixth place. We've added about $1,500 to our median income measure from the last time, and so everybody knows that we continue to have a high median income. Educational attainment, we are ranked second in the nation for associate's degree or higher, up from third in 2021. And we are ranked third in the nation for bachelor's or above, up from fourth in 2021. And we are ranked third in the nation for advanced degrees. So we continue to have a very educated population in our county. In terms of housing prices, those continue to increase. As we all know, we've all talked about housing affordability in the last several years, and Howard County continues to increase. However, Howard County, we get a lot of amenities for our housing prices and what we pay for. But our housing costs are going up, but they make up a smaller portion of income compared to the state and the national average. So although our housing prices are going up, the average resident doesn't spend as much a portion of their income on housing as the state and the nation. And that's just if we go back to okay. So yeah, I just wanted to add one thing here. I just wanted to kind of reemphasize that Maryland it's a very wealthy state. Prices are going up. Howard County is the same way, but as you see there, that's just basically just giving you basically how the housing prices has risen since 2012 and how it compares to how it's rising from Maryland and the U.S. Right. Next one. So we will go into unemployment trends. As everybody knows, unemployment is very low. And we see our labor force We see our labor force there, and then that's the number of people obviously that's looking for work or wanting jobs, and then we have the number of people employed. It's very low. It's been it's historically low, and it's that way across the state. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see that and compared to our peer counties, we are one of the lowest. All of the peer counties fall between 1.3 and 1.9%. Howard County is at 1.4%. But you can see that like we have a very low employment rate across the state of Maryland.
Hey, Jenna, can I clarify on something? Go back
Sure.
to slide 10.
Mhm.
Yeah, previous one. Yeah. So here, obviously, we have been recovering from the loss from pandemic a couple years ago. But am I correct to say we're still not at pre-pandemic level yet?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So we've like actually this last year, and this will be in a slide coming up, we've seen some in the next slide, you'll see that businesses in Howard County and how they're doing with the employment change. This has been the first positive year since the pandemic, but so we're slowly getting back there, but we're still not at pre-pandemic levels.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you'll see the slide here. This is what we were just talking about, Holly, in-county employment trends. So this is how our businesses are doing with their total employment. And you see Howard County compared to Maryland and the US. And then this last year, it was 4%. We increased 4%. So, you know, we hired, you know, 4%. We had a 4% increase in workers for businesses in Howard County, which is, that's, like I said, the first positive increase since the pandemic. So I think we're moving in the right direction. But like you said, we're still trying to get to where we were before COVID. So this is industry growth, and what this slide here is just showing the total employment by industry in Howard County, and then you can see that the Howard County industries are the largest ones are at the top, and it goes to the smallest industries, and then the blue bar shows the net change in employment since January 2020. So you look at the orange bars, we all know professional services is a big part of the industry in Howard County. I think it's like 25–30% of the industries in Howard County. And then you can see that since the pandemic, that sector has also increased. So you see a blue bar net positive change for that. And then just going down, looking at the industries, the next one, for instance, trade. I mean, that's our second largest industry, trade and wholesale, and logistics, transportation. That sector is still the second highest, but it's had a decrease. And so as you go down, you'll look at that slide's just basically showing by industry what industries have been hit more than others. I mean, the financial services sector, you can see that like there's a lot of retail banking branches closing and consolidating, not having as many, like they're doing more, I guess, do-it-yourself kind of branches and not so many branches where you kind of walk into a banking, like PNC has closed, like consolidated a lot of their branches. So that's what you're seeing there in the financial sector. All right, and then firm growth. So some of our industry sectors have been struggling on the employment side, but this is a positive note that those sectors aren't necessarily seeing less businesses forming in that industry. So on the employment side, there's a lot of businesses that are still in business, but they're just working with less workers, right? So you'll see in this chart, the blue bar represents the percentage change of employment in that sector over the last 3 years. And then the orange bar represents the percentage change in the number of firms in that sector. So you'll see that in some of the sectors, the blue bar, you're seeing less employees, but there have been more firms that have been established in that sector. It can mean several things. There's like an influx of new smaller firms or existing firms choosing to work with a more limited staff. And just in terms of history and basically where we are now, Howard County has had the number of businesses in the less than 10 employee range is increasing the most. So that makes sense. We're having these firms that are less employees that are coming online. You have solopreneurs and then businesses with less than 10 people that are kind of the ones that are basically expanding that business space in Howard County pretty much over the last decade. And then this right here just shows the total firms. So for the 5 years prior to the pandemic, the annual growth rate of the number of firms was less than 1%. And since mid-year 2020, that rate has doubled to 2.5%. So we know that some people putting their work during the pandemic. There were a lot of people starting new businesses after the pandemic, whether they were just burnt out from their other job, or they just chose that as an opportunity to start their own business. And this graph is kind of just showing that what happened after the pandemic. And then the commercial real estate, we've heard that the vacancy, the office market is a little, unsettled right now. More vacancies, firms are downsizing. This shows where we were from Q4 between 2023 and 2024. So you see that the office vacancy rate has slightly increased. However, during 2023, it rose to a height of 13% in Q2. And now it's come down to 12.6. So we're seeing a good trajectory in the office market where I believe firms are kind of like leasing less space. So that's what you're seeing there. However, Howard County has done a really good job of converting office space into something else, and also leasing space. So we went from a high of 13, now we're at 12.6, and it looks like we're going in the right direction. The retail vacancy rate arrested about 3%. Howard County's historical average for retail is about 2.9%. So we're kind of where we've been at for a while. And then the industrial vacancy rate remains near historic lows, despite Howard County adding more than 200,000 square feet of space since the beginning of 22. So, and there has been a little more demand in the industrial sector. I know EDA has been getting calls for industrial space more than any other space, and more than any other types of commercial real estate in Howard County. And then the flex space reached a historic low of 3.9 in Q4 of 2023. So, obviously this office market, I mean, everybody throughout the state and throughout the nation is kind of dealing with this, but I think Howard County is showing kind of some resiliency in the office market there. And then the next slide is the commercial base. So this graph shows how much of Howard County's total taxable property base is derived from commercial real property. And so it's the percent in which real property assessments compare to residential real property and personal property. So as you can see, the last 5 years we kind of go between 7.2 and 7.4%. That dropped to 7.2 just means that for this last year, personal and residential property has slightly outpaced the real property assessments, but it's within where we are for the last 5 years. Now with our activity, what EDA has been doing this last 6 or 7 months or so, and some of the programs we started over the last year. So recent activities, we've had several businesses expand, adding net new jobs, adding square footage. So just in terms of like the office market, for instance. So that first one, the Howard County Healthcare Campus, that is over on Dobbin Road. It was 250 or 300,000 square feet of office space that was mainly vacant. So Centennial Medical Group and some of their partners kind of are converting that to a medical campus. And so that's an example of, taking existing office space, knowing that the market isn't so great right now, and kind of using it for something where there is a demand, which there is a demand for healthcare, having a campus where people can go and there's a one-stop shop. It's in the village of Long Reach, and so it's walkable for a lot of the folks over there. And so, that just shows, some of the activity that I believe is going to help, stabilize that office market. And then there's some of the other companies that EDA has taken a hand in. Either, we have loan programs that we've helped them expand, or we've added new jobs or retained jobs. At the top there on the right, you'll see Salvo Foods, and they are a 4th generation company. They've been in the county for like almost 100 years. And they were looking to expand where they were. They were looking at Baltimore County, and we offered them one of our loan programs. So we retained some of the jobs in the county and also added some new jobs. So that is basically what we're trying to do with a lot of our activity at EDA with job creation. And this is, I talked a little bit about our loan programs, and this is our Catalyst Loan Fund. And this loan fund is, we receive money from the state video lottery terminal. So it's from the casino money. Each of the jurisdictions has a fund manager for their allocation from that money. And our Catalyst Loan Fund, which comes from that, just shows over the 10 years where it's been allocated. And as you can see, a lot of it is geared toward women-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned businesses. And those funds, you know, we can lend up to about $500,000, and it's often attractive alternative to like a bank loan, you know, in terms of rates and things like that. And then there might be loans that we might take on that a bank might not. So it kind of fills a gap in the market. We just kind of launched in September of 2023. We launched our Lift Fund, and it's our microloan program. So I talked about banks, then we have our Catalyst Loan Fund, which comes underneath that, and then our microloan program, which is a program where businesses need smaller loans that a bank isn't really going to deal with. So it's between $10,000 and $30,000. It might be for pieces of equipment or something that's kind of put in conjunction with another loan program. And this type of fund is like with companies with maybe a little bit of a riskier profile. They may be more in the startup growth stage, but they need some funds, and they might not have the requisite banking relationship. So our goal is to kind of have this for companies like that, work with them, and then they kind of can move on to larger loan programs or banking relationships, lines of credit. This is kind of like a first entry kind of thing. And we actually pair them with a mentor that we have at the Innovation Center. So they get a financial mentor that works with them throughout the loan and talks to them about their credit history and things like that. The Maryland Innovation Center. The Maryland Innovation Center is located at EDA. It's part of EDA, and they are focused on you know, innovation in Howard County. And so right here shows our stats here. We have in the building 41 resident companies that reside here in the building. We're at 100% occupancy, and then we've added 50 firms to our Circle membership. So even if you don't have a physical location in the building, you can still come in here, take part in the entrepreneurship classes, the mentoring, co-working space. And so we've added about 50 companies recently. And this talks about our Bright program, which is our entrepreneurship program. And as you can see here, we have about almost 1,000 students and attendees. We've awarded about $60,000 in pitch contests. And like I said, part of the Bright program is to serve traditionally underserved markets. So 75% of our people that come through our Bright programs and take part in our Bright memberships are minority or women-owned businesses. And this just goes into a little bit more about the mentorship aspect. You know, there's a stat that says, like, you know, within 5 years, I don't know if it's 60% of new businesses fail. And so what we're trying to do with mentorship is kind of mitigate some of that risk there. And so right there, it just shows you like the type of mentors, like what sectors they're in, and the number of hours and that we've kind of given, you know, in the fiscal year of 2023 and 2024 for mentorship. So we mentor residents, companies that are in the Innovation Center, and we also, anybody that takes our entrepreneurship classes, you know, so they could be Howard County, it could be Maryland. You know, the Innovation Center, there's people that are outside the county. It's a regional draw. They also get mentoring sessions. And then this is just an example of one of our tracks for HOCO Hire. So we have that first one, the fast track. It's basically people that are coming in, they just have an idea. They don't really know a lot about, you know, whether the idea makes sense, if it's feasible. Oftentimes they have nothing set up in terms of structure or incorporation. They just have an idea. And so that's that first class, that first track. It's could be between like 7 or 8 weeks. And then they graduate onto the Growth Accelerator. And those are companies that are, maybe been in business for a while. They've incorporated. They've been in the position where they're wearing multiple hats. Like they're like the outward facing person, and they're also the lawyer and the accountant and things like that. And they're poised for growth. And so that middle set of classes really like shows them like how to hire, what to look for, how to get back office functions, stabilize their business so they can kind of be prepared for growth. And then obviously the CEO Accelerator, somebody that's kind of already been there, but they're looking to raise money. They're like off into the next phase of like high growth. Okay, so that is the presentation. Just to kind of give a foundation of what the business panel is going to be talking about. But as the presentation said, the presentation was talking a little bit about, a lot of what we're trying to do at EDA focuses on getting out to companies that are existing companies and making sure they have what they need to expand and retain jobs in the county. And then some of it is how do we get that entrepreneurial pipeline? How do we cultivate that entrepreneurial pipeline? So that's another thing that we're doing. And so I have several folks, the 3 people here that can speak to some of this, and I'll be asking them questions. The first one is Christy Simon, and she is president and CEO of the Central Maryland Chamber. And the Central Maryland Chamber deals with businesses in Howard County, Anne Arundel, and Laurel. And so a lot of her businesses are Howard County, so she can kind of opine on across industries what Howard County businesses are saying and what they're going through. And then we have Laura Bacon. Laura Bacon runs an incubator, an accelerator. I know she kind of has the verbiage that she would like, but it's basically an incubator accelerator for women of color. A lot of them are in the professional services or retail sector. And so she sees a lot of what businesses need when they're just starting and they're looking for a community and looking to grow, mainly women, a lot of them, like I said, in the retail professional services sector. And then Chuck Bubeck is on board, and he's with EDA, and he runs our innovation center. And he can kind of opine on what these, like more of the tech side of things, what these companies are looking for. And it's not just startups, it's companies that have been in business and they're in their growth phase now and they're trying to raise money. So those are the 3 on the panel, Holly.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So I would think that maybe let's hold the questions until the business panel finish on that. And we can kind of ask all the committee members can raise your hands, and we can ask questions to both Jennifer and the business panel regarding the overall economic under our perception, and also any questions there. So let's go with that. So Jennifer, who do you want to speak first from the panel?
Okay, so Christy, so did you
just unmute yourself, whoever need to speak, then put your you should be able to unmute yourself. Yeah, I think I saw her earlier.
I'm here.
I see your name.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go
Okay, good. Jennifer,
Thank you very much.
do you want me to start with the first question?
Yeah, so Holly, I had a list of questions for them to kind of, how did you want to do?
So you decide. I mean, you're the one who chaired the channel.
Okay, so yeah.
Panel discussion. You go ahead.
Okay, so all right, great. All right, so yes, the first question, and what I'm trying to get here is like, what makes Howard County attractive place to do business, and what makes it a hard place to do business?
Great. Well, as Jennifer mentioned, we are a regional chamber of commerce that covers both Howard County and Anne Arundel County, and we communicate a great deal with our Howard County businesses. Howard County is a great place to do business for many, many reasons. First, I'd say the business community is very, very supportive. They work together on goals and initiatives, and just a great support system for each other, like a network of businesses that work together often. We also have an incredibly strong EDA that Jennifer's leading now, that is always there for advice when people need help finding a location or office space, the funding that she went over, and also just general business support. And of course, the Howard County community is just a wonderful place to live and work and do business. It's incredibly safe and well-maintained, and it's attractive to employees, as well as employers, investors, and more. And I'd also say the community in Howard County is really innovative, modern, And it's just really exciting in Howard County. So those are some of the reasons I'd say Howard County is a wonderful place to do business. Did you want me to move into the difficulties? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. So some of the things we hear from businesses regularly is the extremely high cost of living, which, it makes their employees often have to have a longer commute. Many of their employees live outside of Howard County, Baltimore City, and other surrounding jurisdictions. So they have a longer commute because they may not be able to afford to live in Howard County. There's also, and this is kind of everywhere, but a lack of daycare and affordable childcare in the area, which, takes people out of the labor force in general. But more childcare opportunities would be great to have. The public transportation system, it exists, but it doesn't really support employees getting to and from work, whether they're within the county or could be coming from a city or a surrounding county. And some of the other challenges that we hear from our businesses is number one is workforce. So many of our businesses in Howard County are looking for employees. They haven't bounced back to where they were pre-COVID. They still have vacancies, and they're often competing for the same employees with other businesses that may be in their same field. A lot of people left the workforce, of course, the daycare issue I just mentioned, and the cost of living there as well. The cost of real estate, commercial real estate, and rent is also a stretch for some people who may be in other jurisdictions looking to potentially move to Howard County. So those are just a few of the concerns that we hear from the business community.
Great. And then if Laura and Chuck could also give their feedback on the good things and the bad things about Howard County, that would be great. Are they able to?
Yes.
Sure.
Go ahead, Laura.
I can't see anybody, so I don't know who's talking or when. I'm sorry. Hey, Chuck. Hello, Jennifer. Thanks for inviting me to be here. I think I second a lot of what Christy said as far as benefits and challenges. I will kind of lift up benefit-wise. I think there's also a logistical sort of benefit here, like free parking, not a ton of traffic within Howard County. Ample amount of parking, I think, makes businesses happy in general. The other thing that I think is a benefit here is they always seem to kind of yin and yang, right? So yes, the housing is very expensive. Commercial real estate is very expensive, but you also have people here with disposable income who are looking for business services, who are looking for retail, who are looking for food and entertainment. When I think about the diversity of the people here in Howard County as well, I think that's a huge benefit to businesses because they're getting a larger swath of the population and a more diverse swath of the population to be able to come and frequent their businesses. When it comes to challenges, again, then we're kind of looking at the flip side. I would 100% second public transportation as a challenge for business owners, but as well as their employees, and that lack of sort of inter-county public transportation is a big one. The other challenge that I think we hear a lot here at the Third is around the price of commercial real estate, as well as the processes to acquire commercial real estate. And then the last challenge I would touch on is the just generally speaking, some of the logistical things around various permitting in the county can start to be a little labor intensive for some of the businesses that we're working with. I think the county is really well set up to work with chains or with franchises, but when it comes to working with smaller businesses, especially when we're talking about retail and food and things like that, it becomes a little more difficult for people to navigate. But yeah.
Thanks, Laura. And then Chuck, who runs our innovation center and is also working with like startups and growth companies in the innovation tech sector.
Yeah, I guess to pick up on the question, I think one of the changes that's happened recently, which has been helpful on the workforce side, is sort of not a flight, but a drive away from cities. And the more that we've invested, like downtown Columbia has been helpful. If we looked at the younger workforce, the things that they are looking for are now starting to become more available. Certainly in the central Howard County or Columbia area. That's a major change. If you look and take a walk, obviously downtown around the Meriwether district, you're seeing a lot of younger workers who have decided to make this a place instead of normally heading to the cities. So I think that's a good change there. The biggest challenge from my standpoint, and Jennifer touched on it, and it is one, and that is the availability of investment capital. And I think that may show up in one of the other questions, but that's still a challenge for the state and the region right now. For the startups that we have, it is a challenge still to find money, and that is not a problem that's just a Howard County problem. That is a state and sort of a regional problem. We do lose a lot of our investment opportunities to states like Virginia, much less Texas and California. So that's it. I can touch upon that if there are later questions related to that, but that's probably the positives and sort of the challenge side.
Thanks, Chuck. So now I'm going to jump into, so like I know that there are like a lot of the challenges, transportation, infrastructure, a lot of things we were hearing about housing affordability. I mean, that kind of change that to change that kind of takes time, obviously, and the county's working on it, and like a lot of stakeholders are working on that. So my next question is, what, based on what you're doing now, like in terms of businesses, who you interact with in terms of businesses, what can we do as an EDA or as a county in the short term to kind of help with this? So, right, so obviously infrastructure and roads and transportation is going to take a while. So anything like, how do you see, the Economic Development Authority and the county in general helping with entrepreneurship or business retention, retaining jobs? What can they be doing differently or better or continue doing? So Chuck, since you're already up, you can start there and we'll.
Sorry. So,
Hello?
sorry about that. I'm navigating between the mute and the video. The thing we can do, sort of interaction with businesses. One of the things that, again, I'll play on the innovation side that we've done, and again, Jennifer touched upon it, was to not focus our entrepreneurial efforts just on startups. So Jennifer kind of mentioned that actually, if you look at the types of companies that are coming through and either getting our mentorship or through our programming, a lot of them are existing businesses. And that was an intentional effort that we did right after the pandemic to try to treat all businesses as entrepreneurial. And I think it's been really effective. So the other thing that does is lets us mix startups and existing companies in the same programs, in the same sort of circle. And that's been super helpful.
Great. Thank you. And Laura, what are your thoughts on that?
Of course, I took that moment to snack on something real quickly. Hold on. So
it's just like, what can the county or EDA be doing, or stakeholders that in general, and for the short term, like infrastructure is going to take time. Some of the stuff we're going to take. So what can we be doing or doing more of, or continuing to do to help with startups that you work with?
Sure. I think one of the things EDA has already started doing, which is beautiful, these sort of like during Small Business Appreciation Week, going to small businesses and hearing directly from them. I think a lot of small business owners, I think we can all kind of relate on this. We don't have a lot of time or a lot of extra bandwidth. So someone coming to your business or someone making it a point to come and listen to what your specific needs are or your specific wins are, I think is really, really helpful. Someone who can just kind of help navigate. I find that there tends to be sort of a disparity in confidence around the ability to get some of these things done or to access some of these things, and having someone to either help you navigate or who can listen to you as you navigate, I think is something that could be replicated throughout some of the county stakeholders and not just live in the EDA world. The other thing I would say too is, as we were talking about sort of the economic standing of Howard County within the state and within the country, what happens, at least within the state, is a lot of state funding opportunities and or private funding opportunities hop, skip, and jump over Howard County. They go Baltimore City, then they go Prince George's County, and then maybe they go to DC. But I think really working on shifting the narrative around what the needs are and the opportunities are here in Howard County, because I think there's a statewide narrative that we're just fine here in Howard County and we don't need anything else, and no one needs to put any effort or funds this way. And I think that, as Chuck was talking about with sort of capital in general, that figuring out ways to mitigate that on the county side, whether that be through grants, but also just advocacy around the dollars that are out there and making sure that they're coming towards Howard County.
Thanks, Laura. And Christy, in terms of the businesses that you're working with, and just briefly talk about like the size and the type of businesses that your chamber works with, and then just talk about some of the things in the short term that we all could be working on to help businesses together.
Sure. So our chamber primarily, I'd say, works with entrepreneurs, small businesses. A lot of them are just like 1 to 5 employees. The vast majority, I'd say, are 50 employees or less, and there's a lot of those in Howard County. I want to reiterate what Laura said about the Business Appreciation Week visits. I thought they were outstanding. I went on several myself, and the issues we are hearing in those meetings and conversations, it was really helpful to hear from the business owners where they were. A lot of people are not aware of the support that EDA can give them, or that there's loan programs or other resources that they can reach out for help. So some other areas I think EDA could possibly help, and I know that the state had some funds on this. I'm not sure if the counties did, but potentially using loans or grants or funds somehow to assist with childcare startups or expansion to childcare facilities, which would help get people back into the workforce potentially. I think there are some creative ideas that can be investigated on short-term transportation programs, like more of the ride-sharing model and things along those lines. And, just supporting overall growth of all of our businesses collectively. It brings in more revenue for the county, as shown in the PowerPoint previously, through taxes. And, those taxes continue to help with infrastructure projects and things like that.
Okay, thank you, Christy. So I'm gonna open it up to if there's anybody on the in the meeting that has questions of EDA or the panel.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate Jennifer and also the whole panel on that. So if anybody has a question, just unmute yourself and you can ask the question. I haven't heard one, so let me throw out one. So one thing is, I want to ask all the panelists there, what's your general read of the economy, specifically on like either your sector or the ones you work with closely? Do you see things that are getting better, or it's actually kind of struggling? Folks are struggling a little bit. Just kind of more perspective on about immediate outlook and what are the drivers there? Can anybody share a little bit?
Sure, I can jump in. It's Christy. So obviously we went through a huge economic downturn through COVID and recovering from COVID. It did seem like many businesses were in a much better spot a year or two later, and a lot of that is due to the great funds that the county, state, and federal government were able to provide our businesses to support them. But it does seem like we've seen a real kind of second wave of an economic downturn between last year and here at the beginning of this year. Businesses are struggling again to pay their bills, to expand and grow, to be able to potentially sell more product or provide their services because of a lack of staff and things along those lines. So I'd say a lot of our businesses are optimistic about what this year will bring. And then there are some that are really questioning where they're at. Some folks are considering closing businesses or being acquired by other firms and things along those lines right now too.
So it's kind of mixed, this feeling there.
I would say so. Yeah.
I would agree with Christy too, and I would also say that there is like one of the slides I showed like by sector. There are some sectors that are definitely like boomed. They did great during the pandemic, depending on their business and what they were doing, and some that are still struggling. And so you're getting like a mixed bag, like she said, because from the sector side also. And I think some of the economic reports that I've read that they don't think it's going to be for this year, it's not going to be necessarily a recession, but it might be a little bit of like stagnation for this year. So I mean, that's what I've been reading. But there are definitely, for instance, when we visited businesses, there are businesses in the county that along Route 1, food manufacturers, for instance, that are doing very well and need to expand, and there's not enough room on Route 1 for them to expand. And so we're trying to make sure that they stay in the county and can expand. And then you can go to the hospitality industry that's still struggling, the restaurants and the hotels. They're still struggling from the pandemic. So you just get like a mixture.
I think, Jennifer, to add to that too, the companies that have embraced technology have also been able to kind of skirt by a lot of the other issues which have hurt companies, post-pandemic. And if we look at some of the startups, for instance, in our space, a lot of them have kind of began their businesses realizing that they're going to have to do without a large staff. In other words, the dream of a company, 20 years ago was I'll hire a bunch of people and I'll get a bunch of office space. And the younger entrepreneurs that we have coming in now are looking at it instead at profitability and scalability of what they're developing. That creates a challenge for us, however, because they do need less workers. And Jennifer's aware too, some of our superstar companies that are even in our center now, they can hire nationally to deliver their service, particularly if they're in a SaaS or a software as a service type of environment, which is huge around here. And so that's the challenge a little bit. In other words, we can grow a lot of these startups here, but they're economically how they affect us are still need to be kind of worked out, because we've got some companies in our center that could run a $10 or $20 million business with 3 people out of a 10 by 10 office, because their workforce is spread out and they're highly using technology to deliver their service.
I actually have a follow-up question, but I saw Dr. Clinch is here. I think he's muted.
The man that knows everything.
Yes.
You want to raise a question? Dr. Clinch, go ahead.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about Gateway and how it's got the potential from a placemaking perspective to really kind of change the dynamic for the county and really boost the competition, the ability to compete with downtown DC and or Baltimore?
Sure. So if you guys aren't aware, so the Greater Baltimore region was designated one of the 31 federal tech hubs in the nation, and so there were about over 400 applications. The U.S. EDA selected 31 metropolitan areas to get prioritized in federal money, and as part of that, the Howard County Economic Development Authority is leading the charge for Howard County. Each of the Greater Baltimore Committee, it's Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel, Howard, Cecil, and I think another county. But we're all looking at our counties and saying, what is the potential? What are the projects that we need to put up for? To your point, how can we elevate this region, right? And so Gateway is one of the things that we put forward for a project, and it's because of what you said. It's close to the freeways, it's close to the airport. There's companies that are already here that are doing great things. Tech companies, things that are people that are companies that are like very high growth, and it's pretty much like 1,000 acres of untapped potential. So we're using the federal tech hub as a way to raise this to the level of an innovation district. Also, concurrently with that, we just finished the general plan. The county council approved to pass that, and the next stage for the general plan is the Gateway Master Plan. So the county has just hired a consultant. They're convening stakeholders, which means the property owners in Gateway. So that's Howard Hughes, Copt, Abrams, Columbia Association, and I'm sure I'm missing one other one, but those are the big ones. They own like 70% of the property, 80% of the property here. We've had one meeting, and we're having another meeting in 2 weeks actually to get stakeholders together to talk about the vision, how we can use the federal money along with other monies to kind of plan out Gateway and elevate it. So to your point, I mean, and we had the GBC come out and take a tour. Governor Moore was out here. Senator Cardin was out here, just drawing people to the fact that I think now is the time, because since we just finished, we're right starting the planning process. We just got this designation. I think now is the time to kind of really put a vision together for Gateway as an innovation district, and we're working on that now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alan has a question. Go ahead. Alan Giles, I think you are unmuted. Do you try to ask a question? We cannot hear you somehow. Okay, you can come back. If you have issues, also you can text and I can raise that question here. Anybody else has questions? Okay, let me add one. There is Chuck mentioned earlier about the importance of technology. Those companies that are able to take more advantage of that appears to be doing relatively well in during the last couple of years, and sometimes even better compared to pre-pandemic status there. And also last year we have seen the AI use that's come to a new stage, next level basically. Have you, Jennifer and others, through your communication with different business folks in the county there, see either the new challenge to them because they challenge to them or the new opportunities they're trying to grab on that there? Do you want to talk a little bit on that? Just share your thoughts or your observation on that.
So you're talking about challenges or opportunities with respect to AI or emerging technologies, or just
in general, but also specifically to related to AI. Just obviously this is very early stage, so it may not transfer something too concrete right away, but I assume some folks are thinking or processing the information or even start to see some potential impact on their business.
Right. So we have kind of been looking at artificial intelligence as like a horizontal, like that goes across all industries, right? It's basically there because people talk about AI as its own kind of like vertical, but I think for us, it's horizontal, it goes across all industries, and depending on the industry, it's making it more efficient and better. So as I've been talking to different businesses, depending on what their business is, AI and the way it can help is different. So for instance, I just, Dr. Ahmed is on our board. He's the president of Howard County General Hospital. I know it has a new name, but the hospital. And he was talking, and we were discussing like how we can, collaborate more in the health tech sector. What can we do? Because we have entrepreneurs come through here with health tech. How can we map what they're doing to what to maybe he can come out and talk about what the hospital needs, and we can kind of meet needs. And he was saying that for AI, for him right now, it's a lot of like efficiencies and back office stuff, patient files and things like that. So it's kind of like a back off, like obviously it's going to extend to other things, but what they're thinking about now, there's like a lot of records and this, and AI is basically, he's looking at it that way. So that's an example of like, how that could help in the hospital. And he thinks, and now we were talking a little bit about AI and health technologies and things like that. So I think there is a lot of like back-end support. I know I use it as a back-end support. Some of the manufacturing, I've talked to Luke Chow, who owns a manufacturing company. He does, like with his advanced manufacturing, he uses a lot of AI on the floor, the factory floor, with some of the equipment. And that the challenge for him was like a lot of the workers that he has coming in don't have the skills to, these are like, it's very expensive equipment using artificial intelligence with some of these advanced manufacturing techniques on the floor. So a lot of these workers don't know how to use it. So he has to train them up and like figuring that out. So I guess it just depends on the sector, but that's what I'm hearing. I don't know if Chuck or Christy or Laura has any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, interestingly enough, there's a parallel to this, I think. If you go back 10 years to cloud computing, when cloud, when using the cloud for data first came out, there was a lot of fear and people said, I don't use the cloud, I don't want it, when they didn't realize they were already using it. They were banking online, they were using Facebook and all, which is essentially using the cloud. And so I think AI is in a way similar. Right now, people are using AI, and to Jennifer's point, horizontally, they don't even know they are. So it's one of these things that has kind of snuck up on us. And I think, companies that put that in the forefront, and that's what we're talking about, what companies are actually going to be AI companies, that's a separate conversation. The biggest one is companies that are using it to really work smarter and work faster. And we've been doing that, as a society since, when the PC first came out. So this is just another iteration of it. The good news is we've got a lot of really smart people in this county. I mean, we didn't talk about those stats, I don't think, but the educated workforce and all that, and AI is going to be a major part of that. So I think it is going to have a big impact, but we may not see it for a while because we're already using it. In other words, if you look at people that are using it now, it really isn't any different than when you were using Google, right? When we were searching with Google 7 years ago, you now can search with AI. It's almost like it's quite similar. So I think it's one of those things that's going to continue to sneak up on us, and hopefully it ends up being a positive experience.
I would say, just from the Third's perspective and the entrepreneurs that we're serving, we are definitely looking at it in the same way that Chuck was talking about making things more efficient. As an entrepreneur, how can we be using AI tools to, one, maybe address some of the challenges that currently exist around workforce, around productivity? How can we use it as a tool? I think, but I think there's also an element that we may not be looking at because we're in it, so we don't see it as being at the forefront of this. But what does it look like for these business owners to start to play with AI in different ways, start to utilize it in different ways, so that they can be a part of the conversation around regulation, around use, around best practices, and really be pioneers and at the forefront of how we use AI for businesses?
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the group? This is really informative. So I'll do one more question. So I think Chuck mentioned earlier, maybe you just hinted there are certain comparison between the county and some other cities or counties regarding business environment. It looks like more in terms of tax environment. Do you want to just elaborate a little bit on that?
So are you saying, you're saying as a state, or Howard County is like not considered business friendly? Is that what you're?
I think, yeah, I think Chuck mentioned something earlier regarding the competitiveness about the environment. So without kind of dive into it, I just want to give him opportunity if all of you want to just say a little bit more about that.
I was speaking, Holly, about the investment community when I mentioned that. That's an area where we have lag, and that is, it's just the way it is right now. I mean, if you look at particular venture investment, or even angel investment, or any kind of investment, for some reason, and it's confused a lot of people. We've talked to a lot of people why we have not been as much of a draw for the people who are investing in companies, and they tend to obviously sit on the West Coast, Austin, Boston, somewhat in the South. But we just, considering when you look at the wealth of companies we have, the wealth of technologies, the federal government, which is of course feeding a lot of our non-federal companies, it's surprising the amount of VC money that is put into here. And I'm using VC very broadly here, not just big money. And in fact, if you look at some charts, we don't even show up on the chart when you get a list of cities that are getting investment capital nationally. The last one I looked at, I kept going down the list further and further, and I couldn't find Baltimore, Washington, any of this area. That's a challenge for us. It really is. And that is not something that's going to change quickly. Part of the way we do that is to demonstrate the success we have. And in fact, we've had this conversation on a GBC meeting, that we don't make known the quality of examples that we have here. And again, part of that problem is, and somebody else mentioned it, we don't have a lot of Fortune 500 companies based here. We just don't have huge companies. What we have is a lot of smaller companies who actually are doing really well. and they just don't get the exposure. So that's a challenge that TEDCO faces, that all the other organizations, we're all familiar with it, but it is one that can be a problem, because without capital, these companies cannot move out of that entrepreneurial space that we've been nurturing them in. And again, this is not just a Howard County problem, it is a state problem. And in fact, a lot of money is coming from and available in Northern Virginia. If you pull up and search for investment, Northern Virginia is going to pop up with a ton. Now, they are making investments here. Those companies are allowing investments in these Maryland companies, but it just doesn't bode well. You know, a final quick example, we have a company in our space that's doing very well, and he ended up, he had to get the investment from Texas and California, and he grew up in Howard County. He's a Howard County grown person with a dynamic company. He just raised $3 million. 0 was from Maryland. So that's kind of Holly what I meant. As far as competitiveness, otherwise, I think we're super competitive. We're super competitive on technology, workforce, innovations. Look at APL. Look at, you know, all the pieces are there. That's why it's very difficult, and it is. It's confounding to a lot of people in the space right now, trying to figure out a way around that. And I think, like I said, I think the answer is exposure. There's just not a lot of great success stories of the companies that we have here that could draw some of those money people to take another look at this region.
And some of it is communications that EDAs, you know, could be doing too. It's like promoting the county. That's one of our priorities. So I think, you know, as a county and pretty much as a state, we don't really market and communicate effectively, you know, so to kind of make people aware of all the great things that are going on here. So that's a thing, that's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much. Oh, Dr. Clint, you have a question. Go ahead.
Well, if I may, more of a comment than a question. I did the state's innovation ecosystem study late last year, mid last year, and we do rank relatively low compared to our peers, but competitive with them in venture capital investment. But what I would say is in IT, and we have lagging in terms of growth over the last 5 or 6 years, but we are in IT doing quite well, growing faster than the nation, faster than the region, faster than Virginia, and fair to middling number of those deals were cyber companies associated with Howard County. So clearly venture capital in Maryland is an issue. It's becoming less of one in many people's opinions, but clearly is. And Howard County has done relatively well in venture-backed investment. Could we do better? Sure. But I just wanted to add that for the group, maybe a differing opinion.
Yeah, I think like part of like what some of the other states like Virginia or North Carolina had, though, that they kind of, I think as a region, promote their region better. I guess what I was, you know, so we have, you know, I think they just do better. And like Austin is like the region, you know, that, you know, when you hear some of these regions, what they're known for, and they do very well in marketing that. And I just think we have an opportunity to kind of market the region better.
I completely agree. That's one of the findings of the ecosystem assessment. You know, the states are coming after us in cyber, and we don't do what Massachusetts does in life sciences. It's a Maryland issue. I don't think it's a Howard County issue. I mean, the county can only do so much for a whole sector like life sciences or IT. But one person's opinion, I'm going to shut up.
Thank you very much. It's a really good question and a good discussion there. So Jennifer, do you have anything else to add, and also the rest of the panel before we move on?
I don't have anything else to add. The panel does. That'll be great.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great discussion. Yeah, great discussion. Very, very important information for the committee, but also for the county, because we also, economic development is so important for the entire county there. It's very, very important to understand what's going on, how to make things better on the policy environment, and also inform our, obviously, budget development as well on that. So it's super, super important to us. Thank you very much for everyone for participating and share your information and your thoughts. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you. So with that, let's move on to the next items on the agenda. Jimmy Jennings from Realtors Association is going to share some interesting information about the real estate market. So I think, Paul, you can you can share the screen online, and then Jimmy, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, and Holly, thank you again for allowing me to do this.
Oh, can you be a little bit louder, Jimmy? Yeah, thank you. You want to try one more time?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, much better.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Well, Holly, I just want to, first of all, thank you, the Howard County Association of Realtors. Really appreciate you allowing us to do a quick share today. And so we're just going to kind of give you a quick layout of the housing market, the way that we view it and the way we see it. We're going to give you some data because, of course, you know, realtors love data. We love data and numbers. And so I hope this is helpful. And so let's just go ahead and kind of share what that housing activity is and the pricing trends that we're seeing right now. Okay, just a couple things to keep in mind, first of all. And in the first 10 years, in the last 10 years, Howard County has experienced pretty much a decline in the supply and demand of housing right now. But the concurrently, you know, in the last same 10 years, we're still experiencing the same thing of affordability issues, and also an increase in the size and cost of homes, which is kind of like a double-edged sword. So so this is kind of what keeps the association up at night, trying to find solutions and kind of follow the data trends, you know, economically. So so I'm going to kind of share a few of the things that we're seeing right now. And also legislatively, we have some zoning and land use changes that we've been proposed to our state legislation also that may can come up with some kind of help as far as like with housing and housing affordability, and even some, you know, maybe we can find some solution to you know, to some of these problems that we're facing right now. So just keep this in mind. So just some quick definitions, because I'm going to use 5 of these interchangeably at times, which is going to be closed sales, the contract ratio, which is going to be very important. That has a lot to do with affordability. Days on market, which kind of will speak to a lot of our demands. The median sold price, which is pricing, and then we're going to talk about the monthly supply of our inventory, which is has been a huge challenge in the last several years. So we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit. Okay, so 2023 stat snapshot. And by the way, I did add into the SAAC folder in a 5-page Word document that kind of goes into even a deeper detail of some of the things I'm going to be talking about today. I just want to kind of share this with you. By the way, you guys are going to be the first to see this because this is hot off the press for the year ending of 2023. That's made available to us. So even our association is just getting their hands on it last week, and our realtor partners will be getting their hands on it probably the next 2 weeks, but you're going to kind of see it first. So from 2022 to 2023, we actually sold about a little over $2 billion worth of real estate in the county. And this is residential real estate, but it was a decrease of about 15.5%, which is kind of concerning. But however, the sales price actually went up about 6%, and which is going to kind of go to the affordability slides that we're going to have, which is going to be very interesting, especially to our realtor people. Average days on market, still very brisk. 16 days from the time a house goes on the market to is actually going to contract to be sold, which shows still pent up demand from buyers that, you know, they want housing. This is a need for us in this county. Our list price is still high. And if you check this line right here, it says the average sales price to on list price ratio, pretty much still every house that's going on the market, people are paying for it above list price, no matter what the appraised value is. So they're getting cash somewhere, usually from their savings or their 401ks to pay that difference in their appraised value versus what they're actually purchasing. We're going to also show in a lot of these slides the difference between the prices of detached homes being sold versus, you know, townhomes and attached homes and condos and things like that. Now, this is what the realtors love to see, and they're even more interested is the financing part. You know, where's the money coming from? How are the people making these purchases nowadays? Conventional financing means you're going to probably have up to 20% down payment. But this is for 2023 showed us something that we haven't seen in a while. The amount of people who actually purchase a house straight out with cash. Usually that's about a 5 to 7% number. every year, and sometimes even lower than that. But there's been an uptick of actually cash being spent. I mean, a straight out cash, no financing at all needed. The FHA product is usually kind of equates to affordability, which is the lowest way to get a down payment. But even with that type of financing, people have less than 3.5% down payment. They're getting squeezed out of the market right now. 2023 was not a kind year to first-time home buyers or people in certain demographics. So, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit more. What our association has been seeing with that. Days on market, again, it's another eye-opener for us. We're going to share this again with our association in about a week. And from 1 to 10 days, you put a house on the market. I mean, almost 66% of our homes that were sold. We had a little over 3,300 homes sold last year. Almost 2/3 of that was sold within the first 10 days. There were 100 of those sales happened before they even got on the market. And again, it just speaks to just a pent-up demand of whatever hits the market, people still want, and they're willing to pay a premium to get there. So this is also an interesting slide that I wanted to make sure we added, because I know our realtors love seeing this. They wanted to know where the housing prices are and what types of housing people are really purchasing, for their databases and for their marketing efforts. The interesting line is houses that are 800,000 up to 2.5 million. There's been a big uptick in even those prices of those homes. Whether they're detached or townhouses, even 4 more bedrooms that are just very expensive, 800,000 or more. And those are the houses that the new construction ones that are being built. At least we see them in our market. They're not really affordable to the first-time home buyers and anybody below a certain income level, which is I'm not going to say it's alarming as of yet. But it's getting, the affordability issues, especially in the realty industry, it's getting quite alarming right now.
Hey, Jimmy, there's one question from the committee. I think it's from Steve Hunt, was asking, are this just new homes or combination of new and resale? I think it's combination, but I want to.
This is a combination.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the price housing trends. So let's just talk about just the average sales price from 2014 up to 2023, and it was just a steady growth as far as appreciation of the home values right now, the resale of home values up till about 2020. We caught right around the pandemic, pre-pandemic, but that jump from 2020 to 2023, really to the end of this year, is pretty much holding steady. It's a steady climb every year, which is really penetrate an affordability gap that I'm not sure that we're going to be able to maintain it, especially if we're not building anything that's affordable right now. So you're going to find out that the higher price homes or this county is going to be kind of unaffordable really soon, the way that it's trending right now because of the average sales price right now. But on the supply and demand side, as you see from 2014 down to the last month of December 2023, month supply, even balanced market we call between 4 and 6 months, which means you have equal amount as buyers as you have sellers. We're really less than a half of a month right now, as far as like a month's supply of homes, which that's a very critical state. Again, double-edged sword. When you have your prices of your homes continue to increase at the pace they are, and you have less homes to sell that are available, it makes the homes that are even there very unaffordable because people are paying the difference between, like I said, sales price versus asking price. And if their appraised value doesn't hit, they're willing to pay a premium, pay the additional money in order to afford that home. And of course, they got to get it from somewhere. They're usually we're finding they're getting from savings. They're coming in from 401ks. They're using whatever cash available to pay above the asking price and appraised value right now. So we also like, realtors love breaking down things by, detached houses, townhouses, co-ops, just kind of see where the trends are. Where's the money going? Howard County, again, just a an increased pace of the housing prices of detached homes right now. And we have certain areas in which we'll show in a later slide where these areas are. But the values of homes as a medium sales price, detached homes, because of course we know land use areas and permits right now, you don't see a lot of available land use to build communities with just single family homes. Those homes that are being built and some of those resales are extremely high. That price point continues at the pace very high. Townhomes, same trend. More new construction homes are being built right now in the townhome type of format. But those homes, again, entry level continues to rise, which will squeeze out a lot of the affordability of some of our county residents right now. And again, I mean, this is some of the talks that we have in our roundtables with our association. These are some of the concerns with our realtors right now of where are the affordable houses at right now? Where are the resale affordable houses, and can people, afford to live in this county? So where are there some affordable housing? The condos and the co-ops. Interesting enough, their increase has not paced at the same level as the detached and the attached homes, the townhomes right now. But most of these condos and co-ops are usually the 2 bedrooms. There are some 3 bedrooms, but not many. But they're mainly 2 bedrooms homes, and some of our senior living right now. So those prices have not elevated as fast, but they also do not come on market as fast either. 10-year comparative price trend. Howard County is represented by the blue line. It's pretty steady. However, we have certain areas that are performing extremely high with price trends, and we pretty much is just based off its land use. Clarksville has been the biggest increase in this as far as like pricing trends right now. They have more land to develop, but most of those are single family homes and tracts that they're building on, but they're very expensive. And so Clarksville is one of the largest. Elk Ridge, very steady as far as their pricing, and Columbia also. And that has a lot to do with Columbia. Has a lot to do with not that there's more houses being sold in Columbia or houses being built in Columbia. It's pretty much the rental market look like it's tapping into keeping some of the price levels a little bit lower in the area of Columbia, because there's quite a bit of people who are paying up towards, we just recently saw this in December, $3,800 a month in rent for in the downtown Meriwether district and some of those newer apartment complexes. So it's been very interesting to actually see that. Medium sell prices as a whole in Howard County. Again, we try to do 10-year trends, all types of homes. It's going to be a pace, like I said, it's going to be an affordability pace that may not be. I'm not sure how it can be controlled, but these are some of the questions that that we talk about at the association, not only the county association, but we also run it up to the Maryland Association, which I am part of, and we're all having the same issue of affordability. So the price of the square foot per home that's going up. Now, this is also pretty interesting because it actually went up about 25% in the last 3 years, which it could be the cost of materials, the cost of permitting, the cost of land. But the price per square foot is really, it's not only a lack of inventory issue, but it's just a demand issue. People are willing to pay a premium for housing right now, any types of housing in Howard County right now. But that, once again, this is a pace. We're not sure how it's going to be maintained in Howard County. We're just not sure what this looks like because it's been steady for so long. But we're finding that cash will be king, and we really wish that doesn't happen, but we're seeing more and more of it right now. So price per square foot, sellers are asking more, and sometimes they're asking fair market value. But the competitiveness of people of the purchasing right now, they're bringing more cash to the table above appraised value right now. So another way again about the months of supply in Howard County, we're at a dangerous part right now. like I say, it's less than a month supply right now, which is it's going to get interesting, especially springtime is usually the spring and summer is usually the beginning of the high market of purchasing. And so it's going to get really interesting. We've seen more houses starting to come in right now, come on the market, but we're very shocked with the amount of some of the prices are, and still seeing a lot of multiple offers. Pending contracts coming through the last of the winter. Believe it or not, that was at the same level of last year, which is interesting because of the interest rates were much lower this time last year, the November, December rate, but the pending contracts almost the same as it was 12 months last year at the same time, even with a much lower interest rate. So again, a lot of pent up demand, but it's getting, like I say, it's getting very interesting right now. Same thing with the new pendings for the new contracts that came within the last 30 days, almost at the same pace, even with the interest rates. It's almost at the same pace from 12 months of last year. Active listings, very steady, pretty much the same active listings these are active listings at which people are putting the house on the market. It's been very flat for 2023. And so, again, the demand for housing is still very high. People are going to be willing to pay a premium to get into a house. And that we worry about where this savings is coming from, where's this additional money coming from above their appraised values. Closed sales. It was actually a good second and third quarter, and fourth quarter actually came in pretty strong, especially December, which to us that was very interesting again. But it again because of the multiple offers for most homes that are going on sale right now, there's still a big pent up demand for people who want to transition out of rental housing into permanent housing. That like I said, it just kind of tells us where we're at right now as far as like financing and who has where the affordability is and where people are willing to do what they're willing to do in order to get a house. Average days on market still very low. We would love to see that number at 20 plus, 25 plus, or even better at 30 days, which is like a balanced market. But right now, 1 to 10 days is kind of where we're going to be leveling off at. 16 days right now, 2023, which is creeping up, which is a lot better than it was at the beginning of the year. But still, that just shows just a high demand for housing right now, individual residential housing. So just a few opinions that we have, and this is kind of what we go through at the association on not only the Howard County level, but also the state level. Using our chief economist, which is Lawrence Yoon, pretty much he said the signs of the market conditions will be improving in 2024, and we do anticipate a great second and third quarter in which the interest rates are going to drop well enough for the housing market, for a lot more houses to go on the market, but there'll be a lot more buyers coming into the market. Well, only problem is because of the shortage of the homes, there's going to be a lot competitive. The market's going to get very competitive again, and it was not unusual for us to see, for one listing, from 5 to 10 offers to 20 or more. And again, everybody's waiving, at least a majority of people are waiving appraisals, so they're willing to pay that additional money to go above the appraised value of their homes right now. There were 7 weeks we saw mortgage rates drops at the end of the year, down to about a 6.61. Even though we have every expert in the world telling us it's going to get maybe down to close to 6.25 by beginning of third quarter, we won't know that for sure. But even a 6% mortgage, believe it or not, is actually pretty average in the last 30 years. That's average. The anomaly was, right before the pandemic when it was down to 3%, 3.5%. That's the anomaly. That's the things we have not seen in 30 years. So 6%, 6.25. That's kind of where the average is kind of should be. But however, look, it's still an affordability of what the product is. Now, even though there's more options out there, you know, construction is starting to pick up a little bit. Single family home construction and multi-family units are picking up, but we're still seeing in a lot of the incoming residents or who are moving into the county, they don't I guess complaints, not the complaint, but they don't understand the amount of new rental units versus permanent housing that are moving into the county. Because to be honest with you, a lot of people talk, at least moving to the area, they talk about school systems and you know, diversity and other things like that. They want to live here permanently, and they feel better in a more permanent situation than a temporary situation. And rents here are not cheap. And so even though they will take on a 12 or 18-month rent, hoping they can just sit it out a little bit so they can have an opportunity to buy a house, it still sits in their, I guess, their dinner room talk about, you know, how can we find a permanent house to live in such a great county like Howard County. Last couple of weeks ago, I know there was a talk about ADUs, and so, you know, some of the legislative work that we're doing at the association, you know, we're trying to help sponsor the ADU bill. And it just is like it's like a study group that we only know that only one county even has a study group going with ADUs, and I believe that's Anne Arundel County right now. But ADUs can be a small solution, but it's not going to be a permanent solution. It's not going to be a quick fix for our housing shortages right now, because there are a lot of people who do want to age in place, and we do have an aging population in Howard County the way we view it. And so ADUs can be, you know, one of the ways we can help with some of this inventory, but it's not going to be a end all. But either way, legislatively, we are pushing to get that into the study group on this session coming up in February 14th in Annapolis. I know we are also backing some of the rezoning legislation, not only, you know, statewide, but this is not only a county issue in multiple counties, but this is a state issue about some of the rezoning legislation that at least we want to be looked at to make sure that our residents, you know, have the proper amount of housing and also fair housing, because there's a lull. People like this buzzword called missing middle, and it is not only a missing middle, there's a missing bottom as far as affordability, and I'm not sure if there's any quick answers, but whether it's legislation of how much, you know, land use permits cost. I mean, we just don't have a great answer for it, but we do know that at least in this county, housing below 450,000, which still in other counties will be a great price to have, it's not affordable to some of our residents here in this county. And also one of the things that I just want to just as a quick sneak peek, some of the also legislation we've been trying to help sponsor, some of our legislative sponsor has to do with financial literacy in our high schools. And so what does it have to do with housing? You'd be very surprised of some of our newer purchasers coming in, their need of financial literacy and how money works, how mortgages work, how taxes works, and things are, you know, we find very simplistic, but maybe a barrier to home ownership and some difficulties to some of our county residents. So there's some other things that we've been doing there. At least the last 6 months, we were proposing and actually ran it up through Annapolis to try to get on the legislative bench for the February legislative meetings. And so with that, before I go through questions, I actually added into the folder, the SAAC folder, the state of the current housing market. There's a 5-page document that goes into a deeper detail of some of the things I just talked about, where actually pinpoints some of our commentary, some of our medium home prices in certain counties, some of our actionable items that we're doing at the association as a 5-year plan to help affordability to support our communities right now. But I just wanted to make sure I shared that with you also. But if anybody have any open questions about the state of housing, the way we see it as a realtor board, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much. This is greatly helpful. And also thank you for sharing the information in the share folder. Very, very glad to be one of the first ones to have access to the very detailed, very comprehensive information. It's truly helpful. I actually have questions, but I want to open up for the rest of the committee first, because I guess there will be folks really interested in understanding a little bit more. I know there are some folks who are really expert on real estate here. Anybody want to jump in, ask a question? And just make sure you unmute yourself, whoever want to ask a question. Or maybe people are still digesting. So I'll throw out one first then. So I know there are multiple factors that why the transaction is so low, right? It's a supply and demand big discrepancy here. And it looks like, kind of quick comments, looks like for the resale side, a lot of part is because the mortgage rate are historically high, at least compared to more past several years on that. So whoever want to sell, then they feel they're not going to get a favorable mortgage rate to buy on that. And for the new homes, there the permits data I show in the first meeting using DPZ's data is actually we have much less permits going on in the last 2 years. That's actually limit the supply sector as well on that. And obviously house prices has been at the level that I think even middle class white collars might find it's difficult to get there. So with that, I mean, how do you, I know nobody has a crystal ball. What do you see things going to happen the next year also, like your best guesstimate?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So I came out of the convention out of Anaheim in November, and that was almost a 2-hour roundtable discussion about that. And so this is something that we're finding. I'm actually finding this in Howard County, by the way, Howard County and Anne Arundel County. It's interesting to start to see that we're starting to learn about assuming loans now. In several of the counties, you'll start seeing some of now, people are now selling their homes with assumable mortgages. We haven't seen that, and when I say we haven't seen that since like 2002, we're relearning that all over again. They have these 2.875, 3.25 notes, especially in the VAs, but they're very transient. There's a transient industry. When you're like part military, you have to move, and so we're starting to see a lot of those mortgages actually come on market, and they're assuming loans like right now. So just because we find out just because you have these these low mortgage rates, people still want to move because the house still does not fit. I mean, a lot of the houses that are coming on market right now, some of them are selling them within the last 3 years of purchase because they were. I'm not saying they were desperate when we had some instances of people were not desperate when they bought it a couple of years ago, thinking they couldn't get a home, but they found out the house didn't fit. It's like they buy a 3-bedroom when they needed 4 bedrooms, or they have another person moving it, like a multi-family situation, or multi-generational situations happening. And some of the last, I would say, in the last 9 months, we're seeing a lot of increased stories of people coming to the table having to bring money to sell their home, which is even more interesting. They purchased them at the low interest rates. They went all in with above asking price, not and waiving appraisal, and they could have went up to 40, 50, 60,000, and yet now to sell a home, to find a house that actually fits their needs, and there's a lot that are moving out of county. We're starting to see a lot of that to a more a cheaper, not a cheaper county, more affordable county across the line, and they're paying 10, 15,000 just to sell their home. And it's hard to put your finger on it, but we do know that people want to live in a great county like Howard County. It's going to take some additional money to do that. Now, if one of the slides that I think like maybe slide 3 or 4, it showed like 300 or something houses that were paid for at $1 million and above. Those are mostly our cash purchases. And, you know, there's a lot of cash that's really like people moving up from, say a house that was at 750 to $1.25 million, and they were paying cash. So
Can you talk about what kind of people they are, and are they make this investment, or it's their own new living place? Their
own living, they're moving out and up. They're moving out and up. And we thought at one time that we would see more the retirees move to kind of downsize, and we haven't seen that. We've seen almost just the opposite. It's like, you know, you have empty nesters. They're going bigger. They have the equity to go bigger. And could that be for a generational home for their kids to move into, their family move in later on? And I'm not sure, but that's been an interesting trend that we're seeing also. So the ones who have equity and cash, they're moving up. But unless you have cash, it's hard to even get to entry level, especially with an FHA loan, which is the best loan product for if you're going to bring less money down. 3.5% is usually that threshold. We had very, very few FHA loans purchases in our county in 2023, which is really sad. That speaks of affordability right there. That's a sad thing. That's a sad day in real estate for us.
I think that's really a critical issue, and even EDA's previous panel has kind of talked about housing affordability and regional markets, and kind of the dynamic sort of make it doesn't help because of the situation there. Do you see also from your association members there that there, at least on temporary base, there's more interest on renting rather than purchasing because the price is too high?
Well, to them, renting is not a choice. I mean, it's become a choice, but if they had to choose, they'd rather live in the county. I mean, you'll be really surprised at how many. The first talk they have is your first buyer consultation. Most of them talk about how great the schools are and how diverse the communities are. I mean, they just like the way the county is ran, and but it's becoming unaffordable now. If they have to pay rent for a 3-bedroom because they may have 4 people in a household and they have to pay $2,800, $3,000 a month, $3,100 a month. It becomes more difficult to save those additional funds as they're paying that rent, because that rent, like I said, down in the Marywood, there's like $3,800. That's more than a $525,000 30-year mortgage right now. And it's very interesting to see that.
Thank you so much. So any committee members want to take the opportunity to ask more questions? All right, looks like we're good.
Holly,
Go ahead, someone.
I'll jump in, Todd here.
Todd, please, go ahead.
If we overlaid the property taxes collected per dwelling unit on top of this data, would we see property taxes per dwelling unit going up at least the rate of the 6% increase that we're seeing in the value of the dwelling units? Meaning, is the gap increasing between the property taxes collected and the value of the properties, or is the gap decreasing between property taxes collected and the value of the properties as reflected in sale of those properties?
So I will try to also may not be doing it right way. So for existing home versus resale, that's different, right? For existing home there, so far you live there, it's owner occupied property, then no matter how much is assessable base growth there, your tax to the county is capped by homestead, which is 5%. So even your house appreciated by 30%, every year you only pay no more than 5% of gross of county tax on that. When you sell it, then it will be priced at market level. Then the tax rate, which is same tax rate hasn't been changed there, will be applied to a higher assessment base, because at that point it's treated new assessment. The state will do a new assessment on that there. So it's really for the resale, which is very limited these days there, then assessment will be higher than the original property on the previous owner on that there, which is he or she still used to enjoy the homestead tax credit, which is a lower taxable base. But when you sell it with a new owner, then it will be a higher assessment. But that the tax rate doesn't really change. It's more taxable value. But now you can see the data last couple of years, resale is very, very limited. And new construction also is on the lower end. So Todd, actually, there was also a question related to which you might be familiar with. So I want to get your comments on that. As Jimmy mentioned earlier, about 25% of increase of per square footage construction cost, I guess there, and the last year also there. Do you, I mean, you and Jimmy and others, feel free to chime in. Is that mostly material or other things, or it's just supply? So that's just kind of pump up the price on that as a temporary phenomenon. What do you guys think? The per square footage price.
Yeah, I think it's all of it. It can be material cost, it can be land cost, per bit cost, and also and a lot of it can just be just you can literally say, hey, because of the shortage of inventory, it can be an add-on. Are we privy to see that the bill of how it actually works per home? The answer is no. But we do know the sales price will determine that actual cost itself. And like I was saying, that as the price goes up, the price increases, and people are paying more above whatever that appraised value is or whatever the asking price is, that also increases the price per square foot, because it's actually showed once it's deeded, once it shows, that's what the price they paid. And so is there some inflation in there? Yeah, because it's right now, I think the one slide showed sales price is like 101.6% above asking price, above the asking price. Some of that will have some inflation in there, sure, inflated number. But that's what people are willing to pay. So if that's what they're willing to pay, that's.
But I want to make sure that we're using the same metric here, because I think Holly's asking if the construction cost per square foot has gone up, as opposed to is the construction cost per unit sold gone up? I'm sorry, is the price per unit sold gone up? Construction cost is specifically related to the cost of building the house, as opposed to what are they selling it for? So is there more profit in it than the cost of developing the house? I don't know the answer to that. I do know that.
Yeah, but Todd, but the number I gave, those 3,300 home sales or resale plus all the others, new construction and everything else. So I'm not sure how much of that's baked in as far as like the construction cost of material and things like that. I don't know what that balance is between resale and new construction. That was all numbers.
Right.
Yeah. So I get what Holly was saying, but I'm not sure how much of that's the increase of material and permits versus the resale, because the resale is the resale. That's just purchase price itself.
But there can be a big bust between construction cost per square foot and sale price per square foot.
Yes.
Yes. And I don't know, to Holly's question, I don't know that I can answer that question. I don't know. I don't know if construction cost per square foot has gone up more or less than sale price per square foot, even in the new market.
But what's interesting though, Todd, if you look at like the cost of materials, even in Lowe's, construction material, the cost of boards and 2x4s and sheetrock, that cost has gone up exponentially every year. it's almost criminal, some of the cost of that. So the cost of material has gone up. So I'm sure it's passed down through new construction also.
Well, that's certainly true if you smooth out the line. I mean, but early in COVID, I mean, the construction material costs went up astronomically, and now they've come way back down again. They're still up if you looked at the line and smoothed it out. So I don't really know if you looked at 2020 to 2023, what was the for material cost per home. I don't know. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it's up quite a bit. And I mean, we haven't built houses in the last 3 years, so I don't really know. I just get the sense that it's extremely difficult to build houses anywhere near this price per square foot that we were building 5 years ago. But the other thing is that I'll say, Holly, is that just the regulatory environment on what's required in new construction now has changed, and things that were not included in new construction 5 years ago and 10 years ago are now required to be included. So that's definitely driving up the cost of new housing. When you're putting in, on-site stormwater management and it's costing you $11,000 per house, when your building permit cost is now $40,000, where 5 years ago it was $25,000. I mean, those are all big numbers that have a major impact on affordability, because the new housing market is being driven by those new permitting and regulatory requirements that are driven by legislative action. So it's hard to balance exactly what is construction material costs adding and what are regulatory and permitting issues adding for new housing, and then how does that translated in cost per unit of resales, because there is a relationship between resales and new. So if new is 20% more than resales, and new is driven up 20% by a combination of building materials and regulatory requirements, then resales are going to be dragged up too, unless the gap increases, and it's not. So resales, in effect, if you're a seller, resales are being are benefiting from the requirements of new construction that weren't there 5 and 10 years ago.
We agree on that. I can tell you that. We definitely agree on that.
Thank you all. So this is really great discussion, really, and this is very important to all of us, and also for policy making as well. So thank you all very much. One quick heads up for next week. Next week we have also on Wednesday, same time, we have a kind of meeting just focused on education. So we have our partners from the school system. I think there's a team is going to do presentation about the school operating and CIP, primarily based on the superintendent's budget proposal, which I think is going to be released tomorrow. And also, typically they talk about operating CIP as well as a little bit on enrollment projections there. There's also, we're going to invite a representative from Blueprint Task Force that's going to share some preliminary findings or recommendations from that would help inform Blueprint related obligations and funding side on that. We also have Dr. Stone from Community College and Angela Braid from our school system to share the information from these two other important education entities there. So next week, I think we're going to be focused on another important topic there. So with that, I would wrap up today's meeting unless anybody else have last minute questions. All right. If not, then I just want to thank all the speakers today for very informative discussion, and also thanks committee members for really great questions and thoughtful input there. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.